In the shadowed corners of ancient texts, whispers of a divine retreat echo through the ages. Imagine a world where the once mighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one who parted seas and brought down kingdoms, has quietly stepped aside. The heavens have grown silent, and the divine presence that once loomed large over the fate of nations has become a distant memory. This is the world that emerges from the books of Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah, a world where the divine has retreated, and humans must find their own way. In the book of Daniel, we encounter a God who has seemingly abdicated much of his authority to a coterie of heavenly beings. Gabriel, the messenger, and Michael, the warrior prince, now take the lead in guiding and defending the people of Israel. The once mighty God, now referred to as the Ancient of Days, appears old and weary, a silent observer rather than an active participant in the unfolding drama of history. The vision that Gabriel reveals to Daniel is one of conflict and struggle, a world where the forces of good and evil clash, and the future is uncertain. There is no promise of reconciliation or world peace, only a stark vision of tribulation and the eventual triumph of the righteous. The stars, once symbols of divine glory, now represent the few who will endure and be rewarded. But the awe and wonder that once accompanied their mention are conspicuously absent. This shift in the divine role is even more pronounced in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. Here, the Lord God is almost entirely absent from the narrative. The focus is on the human actors, Ezra and Nehemiah, who take bold and decisive action to rebuild the temple and restore the religious and social fabric of their community. The Lord, if he is present at all, is a silent and passive figure. His role has been reduced to that of an honored but enfeebled ward, cared for and revered by his devoted followers. The once mighty God who led the Israelites out of Egypt and through the desert is now a distant memory, and the people must rely on their own strength and wisdom to navigate the challenges of their time. The contrast between the God of the earlier books of the Hebrew Bible and the God of Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah is stark. In the early texts, God is a powerful and active presence, directly involved in the affairs of the world. He speaks with a booming voice, performs miraculous deeds, and guides his people with a firm hand. But in the later books, he is absent, silent, and seemingly powerless. The divine presence is reduced to a faint whisper, and the responsibility for the future of the people falls squarely on human shoulders. This change reflects a profound shift in the way the Israelites understood their relationship with God. In the early texts, God was the ultimate authority, the one who held the fate of nations in his hands. But in the later books, the Israelites have come to see themselves as active agents in their own destiny. They are no longer passive recipients of divine grace, but active participants in the shaping of their future. This shift is evident in the way they respond to their challenges. In the book of Ezra, for example, the returning exiles are not waiting for God to act on their behalf. They are taking action themselves. They rebuild the temple, restore the religious practices, and rebuild their community with a sense of purpose and determination. The retreat of the divine presence also reflects a deeper philosophical and theological shift. The early texts of the Hebrew Bible are characterized by a strong sense of divine providence, the belief that God is actively involved in the world, and that His will is the driving force behind historical events. But in the later books, this belief is tempered by a more nuanced understanding of human agency. The Israelites come to see that they must take responsibility for their own actions, and that the future is not predetermined but shaped by their choices and decisions. This shift is particularly evident in the way the Israelites respond to their challenges. In the early texts, when the Israelites face adversity, they cry out to God, and He responds with miraculous intervention. But in the later books, when they face challenges, they rely on their own resources and work together to find solutions. They build alliances, negotiate with foreign powers, and take practical steps to secure their future. This is a more realistic and pragmatic approach, one that recognizes the limits of divine intervention and the importance of human effort. The retreat of the divine presence also has important implications for the way the Israelites understand their identity and purpose. In the early texts, the Israelites see themselves as God's chosen people, set apart from other nations and destined for a special role in the world. But in the later books, they come to see themselves as a small and vulnerable community, struggling to survive in a world dominated by powerful empires. They no longer have the luxury of waiting for divine deliverance. They must work to secure their own survival and well-being. This shift is evident in the way the Israelites relate to foreign powers. In the early texts, the Israelites see foreign nations as enemies to be conquered or allies to be used. But in the later books, they see foreign powers as necessary partners in their quest for survival. They form alliances with the Persians, negotiate with the Greeks, and seek to find a place for themselves in a world where they are a minority. This more pragmatic and diplomatic approach reflects a recognition of the realities of their situation and the need to work within the constraints of a larger political and cultural context. The retreat of the divine presence also has important implications for the way the Israelites understand their religious practices. In the early texts, religious practices are seen as a means of maintaining a direct and personal relationship with God. But in the later books, religious practices are seen as a means of preserving the identity and cohesion of the community. The focus is on maintaining the purity of the faith, observing the laws, and ensuring that the community remains true to its traditions. This shift reflects a recognition that the survival of the community depends on its ability to maintain its distinct identity and values in a world where it is constantly threatened by assimilation and cultural erosion. In the end, the retreat of the divine presence in the books of Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the Israelites. They are no longer waiting for divine intervention to solve their problems. They are taking action themselves. They are no longer relying on a distant and silent God. They are relying on their own strength and wisdom. They are no longer passively accepting their fate. They are actively shaping their future. This is a powerful and inspiring message, one that speaks to the enduring human capacity for hope, perseverance, and self-determination. In the silence of the divine, the human voice rings loud and clear.